welcome. First of all, I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about some of the data that we're going to be putting on our WeTeach for math. And before we get into that, I added another part. I know we already looked at it, but there's another part that I added to it, and that I want to explain and us dive into a little bit. But before we do that, I want to kind of talk about I know you've heard Miss Gerard, Miss Lowe, Miss Dye, Miss Bush, all talk about the school grade and all the different points and the different parts and lowest 25% and all that kind of thing. But I feel like it's one thing to kind of talk about it, but it's another thing to kind of understand it. So I kind of want you to rate yourself 1 to 5 about how much you understand how we get our school grade. 1 to 5 on how you understand, how much you understand.
With our fingers?
Yeah, you just put it in front of you, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's your fingers.
Score that nobody understands, even if they count it.
Okay, so it looks like most of us are kind of at a 2, okay? So, what parts do you feel like you kind of understand already? What are some things that kind of make up our school grade?
Games.
Games, yes.
FSA.
FSA, that's right, yes, Anybody else? What other parts make up our school grade?
Lowest 25%.
Lowest 25%, okay.
Retainees.
Okay.
Wow, I think I
Easy
need
enough.
Percent of
Open
proficiency.
it up to a 3, okay, alright.
ESOL kids.
ESOL kids, so different demographics, yes, okay. Alright, what do we know about the different levels, 1 through 5, for the FSA levels?
3 is proficient.
So proficiency maybe goes into play as well, okay?
But 2 will get you there.
2 will get you on it, yeah. So when looking at our school grade for elementary, there are 7 different components that go into it, different areas. So we have the science for 5th grade, which is based on proficiency because they don't have a 4th grade test to get gains based on. And then for 4th grade, 3rd and 4th grade, we look at the ELA and the math. And underneath there's 3 different parts. There is the lowest 25% gains, there's the learning gains in general, and there's proficiency. So when we're looking at that, that applies to us big time because we need to be aware of, especially in 3rd grade, who are those ones that, not only for proficiency, but who can we get the gains from. I know it's a little different because we don't have as many kids that took the FSA last year, but all of you have a child, at least one, that is a retaining in your class for math. When we split them up from my class, everybody has at least 1. I know some people have 2. And so it's important to realize how close are our kids to meeting the next level. So when I'm saying meeting the next level is you might have seen that there's different parts of each level. Has anybody ever seen the breakdown of the level 1 and level 2?
Like,
We know.
it's like low.
Yes.
And the numbers.
Yes. So it looks like this. Okay. And there's a low, mid, and high for level 1. For level 2, there's a low and a high. So why is this important? Because a gain doesn't necessarily mean going from a 1 to a 2 or a 2 to a 3. A gain could be low level 1 to a low level 2, or low level 1 to a mid level 1, or something like that. So, so it's important to realize how close our kids are to going to that next part or that next gain, to make a gain, how many points they are. So the district provides us, or the state provides us with this actual scale scores, so you can see how many points did this child need to get to the next, level or so. So that being said, underneath the WeTeach, I added a part yesterday, and I took off all the kids' names, simply because we're recording everything. And this is an example. This is Miss Mercer's. And if you look, I added a little area that says FY19 FSA. And obviously this doesn't, apply to all of the kids. But like I said, we all have at least 1 and we need to get, those gains. And additionally, you'll see that I put lowest 30% from FY19. Now the reason why we put the lowest 30 is because at my training yesterday, they suggested that we take take more kids into it rather than just a 25%, make it 30 because it could change, and also we're getting more kids in there and we're targeting those. So I highlighted those on your spreadsheets. I highlighted those in blue. So from Miss Mercer's class, you can see that these two are in blue, and they are retainees. We know they're retainees because they have a FSA score from last year. Not all retainees are the lowest 30%. So when I'm looking at this child, student one's score, I see he or she was a mid-level 1. And that tells me that that I would want to look at their actual score, the 266. I want to see how many points they need to get to the high 1. So in order for this child to make a gain, they were 4 points off to getting to a high level 1. So when I'm thinking about the next one, I see 279, 6 points off. Still super close. So based on this data, what could this teacher do to target this child to make gains? Based on this data, now that you know this data, what could the teacher do? How could they think about it? What could they do in the classroom to target and hopefully get these kids up into the next level?
Like knowing which section they were lowest in to target that section.
Can you say a lot?
Oh, yes, I can. So knowing which section they were lowest in and targeting there, because obviously they have some knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Targeting which section they don't understand. I don't know what is it called, not sections, but.
Like the clusters and the domains,
Clusters,
yes.
And you can pull that up on ADW.
Pull it up on ADW, exactly. So you can look at how they scored in which areas, exactly. So dive in deeper into it to see, hey, did they really get the multiplication division part, but they lacked on the measurement data? Looking at that, that's awesome. Anybody else have any other ideas?
I think building their self-confidence, just letting them know, look, you were almost there, you got
Right.
this. So,
Right.
because I feel like as a retainee, there's something that it does to them where it breaks them down and they think, oh man, I'm in the same grade, I'm not good
Right.
enough, I can't do this. But showing them like, look, you were almost there, you got this. I
Right.
think that will really help them.
So having that student
to see-
conversation,
Yes.
like having that data chat with them, not just like, oh, you got a 1,
Mm-hmm.
but hey, you got a high 1.
Yes.
You got a mid 1. Like, look how many points you need. You only need 4 points. Exactly. So, exactly. And I also think to tag on to what both of you just said is as we're looking at, if we look at student 1, for example, we could see how this child's doing throughout the year. Are they catching on? Are they, because remember, the difference between the 3rd and the 4th and 5th, the 3rd grade from the 4th and 5th, is because they're taking the same FSA again. They're taking 3rd grade standards again. 4th grade, on the other hand, if they come in as a level 1, we're adding on, you know? So that's the difference. So what areas, I would look at and see what areas, so OA 1.1, was that a problem, just like Ms. Redland said? Was that a problem on their FSA? Was the standard in that cluster, was that an issue? You know, looking at which ones this child got green. Was he, you know, really good in this area? Looking at those different parts to see, wait, you scored really well on this, so why aren't you showing it up on the test? You know, kind of holding that accountable and having that conversation like Ms. Gale said. So now I'm going to take you to one other page, another example of another student, and keep this in mind, what I just showed you about these 2 level 1s right here. We have 3 other students here in Mr. Myerson's class that also were retainees. What do you notice about these in comparison to the first class we saw? The first students.
Only one
Only one
is a low.
a low level 1. Mm-hmm. What about his low level 1?
He's 9 points, so he's kind of fine.
So he's kind of a little further away.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What about the other 2?
They're close, especially one that has 2 points.
Mm-hmm. So we have 2 level 2s and a level 1, and they're all kind of in that low area in the within the level. And so when I'm looking at this as well, like Mr. Myerson said, this child's super close. So he's close to getting to, or he or she is close to getting to that mid, or the, sorry, not the mid, the high 2, because that's the difference between the 1 and the 2, that high 2. So what if this child were to go to a 3? If they're saying, okay, you know, made so much growth, and go to a 3. So let's kind of backtrack to what we said earlier about what makes up our school grade. You know, lowest 25%, the gains, the proficiency. So what I'm thinking here is this child would go from, let's say they made so much growth and they went to a 3. What do you think, how would that affect our school grade? What could that do for our school as a whole?
Like going from a 2 to 3.
Going to 3.
Well, they moved into proficiency. Is that
Right.
more points?
Right.
Mhm.
It's an extra point. So we get a point for proficiency, a point for gains. So it would be a point, exactly. And then what if this child, so this child, for example, the 2s, they're not in our low 30 according to there. But what about, let's pretend the child at the bottom, they made so much growth that they end up getting a 3. How could that affect us? The bottom one, the one
Are
with
the
blue.
low 30%, aren't they more points?
It's 1 point each. So you get 1 point for
okay.
you get 1 point for the for the child being in the lowest 25. Okay, lowest 25%. And then we also, if they went to a 3, we get a point for something else. What would the other point be? So what I'm thinking here, I'm like, okay, knowing that this child could possibly give us 2 points, that's huge.
Danielle,
Yeah,
they
that's-
could get 3 points.
Mhm.
Proficiency, learning gains, and learning gains for low 25.
Perfect. 3 points, even more. So, knowing that, I mean, I'm obviously going to be pulling all of my kids, but I want all of them to succeed. But I'm definitely going to be really targeting this child and really looking at those areas that I need to focus on, especially those high ones. And if you have any level 2s that fall into the lowest 25 or anything like that, I would be targeting those, and like Ms. Relic said, looking at those different areas, the different components that they fall under, and holding them accountable for those standards as well, and having that conversation with them and tracking that. So when you log in, you will see that I did update that. I did put it because everybody has at least one, except for the AMP class, and you can kind of look at that whenever you're inputting the data today, and so you can see how you can really drive that. Use the data to drive the instruction and really pull these kids to show that growth to help our school. So any questions about this?
This is not a question, but it's
Yeah.
just a comment. I really like this, especially looking at the student information and then linking into the data, because then when you're considering the chunks, is it because the student has a language issue, why
Right.
it interfered, so how can I bridge that gap?
Right.
You're looking at the 504,
Mhm.
were they getting the accommodations that they needed,
Mhm.
were they just diagnosed with
Right.
something that gave them
Right.
that 504?
Mhm.
So I really love having this and
Awesome.
utilizing it
Good.
to help me with my instruction.
Good, thank you for the feedback. Additionally, on here, just real quick, I put, so I'm gonna switch back to Miss Mercer's. I did make this, so right here, this little bar is so that it will stay, so you can keep going over and keep seeing your kids, because I know it can be kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add on, while I'm on Miss Mercer's, I really liked how she kind of took it a step further, and she added the number of questions at the bottom, and she, also, if you look, if I go a little further over here, she even started inputting her data already for unit 2. I like how she even made little notes to herself. I'm assuming that means absent. So I mean, just using it to like what is really going to benefit you, your language, and you have it, so that way it's actually useful to you too, you know, and just reminding yourself like, hey, he was absent or she was absent, so I need to pull them, you know. And like I said, because I know we talked briefly about the amount of questions and all that. So having that at the bottom, I think that's awesome. So, good job.
That's the amount of questions on the text for that standard. Okay.
So you put the question, how many times they were assessed on that?
Yes.
And then the other one, I think we talked about you put 6 questions, is that for that one that we talked about?
Is that the reteach?
The reteach, yes.
Okay, so you gave them
I was trying to get to that at least, it's because they said had a.
Right, so for us, 6.
And if you look, how's her retaining right here doing? I mean, they got the OA 1.1, and it looks like they're working on, they struggled with the 1.3, but looking at the different areas, I think she's obviously pulling them and working with them, targeting them.
Also, by looking at your data, it tells me that you're doing an awesome job and I need to observe
Yes.
you. I wanna come to your class.
I'm
and
serious,
just see-
every day,
Yes.
she opens up her opens up her door to let the kids come in, you were on the carpet yesterday for my group, go there now, everybody else, success maker, like, they already know what to do. They go, they know their spot, they get started, everybody else, get your minute success maker, boom, boom, it's like, they know. And I think, so it's great, it's great.
Thank you.
Alright, well that's it, thanks guys for